Have you ever found out your entire life changed from a single sentence? I was just scrolling through Facebook, sipping my morning tea like it was any other day. I hadn't even brushed my teeth yet. Then I saw it. My husband, David, had updated his status. Finally free. Divorced. No warning. No conversation. No papers. Just that. That's how I found out I no longer had a husband. Not from a lawyer. Not from him. From a post, and 100 likes. And just like that, 12 years of marriage disappeared into a single word. I remember that morning like it was yesterday. It was quiet. My daughter was still asleep. I had just made myself a cup of tea, chamomile, my favorite, because David always said it calmed my nerves. Funny how his voice still echoed in my head even when he wasn't around. I sat by the window, wrapped in my robe, watching the steam rise from my cup. I picked up my phone and opened Facebook, just to kill time while the tea cooled. I wasn't looking for anything, just the usual updates, pictures of someone's birthday, a friend's new job, memes I'd seen a dozen times, until I saw it, David's name, his profile picture, and right under it, his latest status update, finally free, divorced. At first, my mind didn't register it. I blinked, I stared, I read it again, divorced. I thought, maybe it was a prank, maybe he'd been hacked, maybe, just maybe, it was a stupid joke that I'd scold him for when he got home. But the likes were pouring in, his friends were commenting, congrats, man. About time. Enjoy your freedom. My hand started shaking, the cup in my fingers trembled. I set it down before I dropped it. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out every sound in the room. I wasn't divorced. We hadn't even talked about divorce. Sure, we'd argued a lot recently, but nothing that would lead to this. I hadn't signed any papers, no meetings, no conversations, nothing, just a Facebook post. That's how I found out my marriage was over. No warning, no goodbye, no explanation. And just like that, 12 years of marriage disappeared into a single word. Before the post, before the shock, before the silence. There was love, or at least, what I thought was love. My name is Rachel. I've been a schoolteacher for over 15 years. I loved my job, still do. There's something about watching young minds come alive, watching kids who doubt themselves finally get that math problem right or read a full sentence without stammering. It gave me purpose, structure, joy. I met David at a friend's birthday dinner. He walked in late, confident, apologizing to the group with a crooked smile that somehow made you want to forgive him. He sat next to me, completely by chance, or maybe fate, and we talked the entire night like no one else existed. He was a software developer, smart, ambitious, witty in a dry, thoughtful way. He didn't talk much, but when he did, I listened. And when I talked, he looked at me like I was the only person in the world worth listening to. We started dating soon after. It was the kind of whirlwind romance people dream about. Flowers left on my car windshield at work, surprise dinners, weekend road trips with no destination, just the two of us, laughing until our stomachs hurt. He made me feel seen, wanted, chosen. 6 months later, he proposed in the middle of a bookstore, our favorite spot. He knelt between rows of dusty novels with a trembling hand and a ring that sparkled like it had been waiting for my finger all its life. The wedding was beautiful, not extravagant, but perfect in its simplicity. My father cried. My mother whispered blessings under her breath. David looked at me like I was his future. We moved into a cozy 2-bedroom house with creaky wooden floors and sunlight that streamed through the windows just right every morning. We spent hours painting the walls ourselves, arguing over shades of blue like it was a life-or-death decision. Our first big purchase together was a second-hand couch we couldn't really afford. We sat on it every night like royalty. 2 years later, we welcomed our daughter, Mia. The moment I held her, something in me changed forever. David cried when he first saw her. He whispered, "She's perfect, just like you." I remember that moment like it's etched into my soul. For years, we were that family. The one in the Christmas cards, the one dancing barefoot in the living room, the one chasing fireflies in the backyard during summer. We took road trips, went to the zoo, baked cookies on snow days. I remember once, Mia smeared flour all over David's face and he just laughed, pulling her close and twirling her around like she was the most precious thing on earth. Our home was filled with laughter, family portraits, drawings taped to the fridge, little shoes in the hallway. It wasn't perfect, but it felt close enough. And when it didn't, I told myself no marriage is ever truly perfect. Looking back, maybe I loved him a little more than he ever loved me. At first, it was just small things. He started coming home late, sometimes past 9, even 10 p.m. He said it was work, that his team had taken on a major project and he was under pressure. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. I even packed dinner for him some nights, only to find the containers untouched in the sink the next morning. Our conversation started getting shorter. At the dinner table, he'd scroll through his phone while I talked about Mia's latest drawing or a funny story from my class. His nods became automatic. He laughed less, smiled less. Some nights, he wouldn't say a word at all. I tried to bring us back. I suggested date nights again, just the two of us. We booked one. I wore that navy blue dress he used to say made me look like a goddess. We went to our old favorite restaurant, but instead of holding my hand across the table or asking about my day, he spent most of the dinner on his phone, replying to work messages, or so he said. We argued that night in the car, not loudly, but painfully. I asked him if he still wanted this marriage. He looked away and mumbled something about pressure, about not having time to be everything at once. Still, I stayed. I told myself marriages go through seasons. I just had to wait this one out. Then came the secrets. One afternoon, I went into our drawer to get a checkbook and found a receipt from a jewelry store I'd never heard of. A necklace worth over 100,000 naira. I hadn't gotten a gift in months, not even a card on our last anniversary. I asked him about it. He laughed it off, said it was a surprise for me, but the gift never came. A week later, I found the earring. It was small, gold, definitely not mine. I found it on the passenger seat of his car while I was buckling Mia into the back. I held it up and asked, "Whose is this?" He looked at it, barely for a second, and shrugged. Probably something Mia picked up at school, or maybe from one of my coworkers. But Mia doesn't wear earrings, and no coworker has ever left anything in his car before. That's when he mentioned her for the first time. Carla. She was new, he said. A data analyst. Brilliant girl, he called her. Super helpful. He mentioned her casually, too casually, like he wanted to plant the seed before I asked. I started noticing her name more and more. He'd say things like, Carla helped fix the client's report, or Carla stayed late to help us meet the deadline. The first time I saw her was on his laptop screen. They were on a Zoom call. She had a wide smile, bright red lipstick, and she laughed at something he said like it was the funniest joke she'd ever heard. And David, he was smiling too. That smile I hadn't seen in months. The smile he used to save for me. I asked him if something was going on between them. He snapped, "Do you think I have time to cheat? With all the pressure I'm under?" I said nothing, but inside, I felt something splinter. And then there was his mother. She never liked me, even from the beginning, said I was too quiet, too soft, that David needed a woman with a fire, not one who cried over family dramas or read bedtime stories with too much emotion. She barely visited. When she did, she ignored me, speaking only to David and Mia. But now, she was visiting more, and colder than ever. One evening, she came over unannounced. I was in the kitchen. I greeted her. She walked past me like I wasn't even there. She sat in the living room with David, whispering. I caught a few words: trapped, deserve better, too soft. The next morning, he was colder than ever. He didn't kiss me goodbye, just grabbed his bag and left. I checked our joint bank account that afternoon. A large withdrawal, half our savings, was gone, transferred to a new account I didn't recognize. I called the bank. They confirmed it was opened in his name, alone. That night, I cried in the bathroom, not because of the money, but because I realized I had no idea who I was married to anymore. He was slipping away, every day, inch by inch, and no matter how tightly I tried to hold on, he kept pulling further. I tried, God knows I did. I cooked his favorite meals, wore makeup even when I was exhausted, sent little notes in his lunchbox. He never mentioned them. The distance grew louder than words, louder than silence, but I had no idea just how far the betrayal had gone. Until it showed up on my news feed. It was Mia's school open day. She had been rehearsing for weeks, singing, dancing, even writing a little poem about her family. She kept asking, "Will Daddy come?" I told her yes. I had reminded David 3 times, even sent him the flyer. He hadn't responded, but I hoped. I dressed Mia in her favorite yellow dress and added 2 matching bows in her hair. She looked like sunshine. I packed a small gift for her teacher and arrived early, scanning the parking lot for his car. It wasn't there. I kept looking at the entrance, my hands nervously folding and unfolding the program sheet. Every time a man walked in, I hoped it would be him. But it never was. Mia kept turning around from the stage, looking for him too. I smiled through it all, clapped the loudest when she performed, took pictures, gave her a standing ovation. But inside, I was crumbling. After the event, I stood alone as the other parents mingled, couples hugging their kids, proud fathers lifting their daughters, taking selfies. I felt invisible. People noticed. I saw two mothers whispering, their eyes shifting toward me. I couldn't blame them. My husband's absence was obvious. Mia held my hand and whispered, maybe he got stuck in traffic. I nodded, not knowing what else to say. We went home. She fell asleep early, tired from all the excitement. I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my phone, and scrolled. That's when I saw it. David's profile. His status update. Just 3 words. Divorced and free. My mouth went dry. The caption was accompanied by a photo, him smiling with a glass of wine, standing beside him. Carla. Her hand rested lightly on his chest. Her head tilted toward him like they'd known each other for years. The comments came fast. Congratulations, man. You deserve your happiness. About time. I stared at the screen, frozen. Then the messages started. My phone buzzed non-stop. Friends, former co-workers, even my cousin Vanessa from Seattle. Rachel, is this true? Wait, did you get divorced? Why didn't you tell me? But I didn't have any answers, because I didn't know. I tried calling him. Once, no answer. Twice, straight to voicemail. I tried again, and again. By the 5th call, I was sobbing, desperate, confused, ashamed. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with every light on, the Facebook post still open on my phone. I kept refreshing, thinking maybe, somehow, it would disappear. That it was a mistake, a sick joke. By morning, the post had over 200 likes. The next day, I dressed up and went to his office. The receptionist looked confused when I asked for him. She told me he hadn't been in for over 2 weeks. I said I was his wife. She looked even more confused. Then she leaned in and whispered, he resigned. Said he was relocating, with his partner. His partner. I asked if she meant a business partner. She hesitated. No, she said. His fiancée. I don't remember leaving the building. I don't remember walking to my car. I just remember sitting in the driver's seat, the world around me spinning like it was about to collapse. When I got home, I tore through our documents, everything we'd ever filed together. I didn't find any divorce papers, nothing addressed to me, nothing to sign, nothing that looked legal, until I found an email, buried in my inbox, unopened, from months ago. It was a digital document. Attached was a scanned image with my signature already on it. My old signature. From a property lease we signed years ago. He'd taken it, cropped it, used it, and submitted it as if I had signed the divorce consent form myself. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. I felt stripped, exposed, used. He didn't just leave me, he erased me, quietly, legally, secretly. He took my trust, something I had poured into him for 12 years, and used it like a weapon, not only to leave me, but to make it official. Without a word, without a fight, without giving me the decency of being there, I became an ex-wife, without even knowing I was a divorcee. He used my trust against me, and turned me into an ex-wife without my knowledge. I'm happy now, he said, coldly. Why can't you just let it go? That's when Mia appeared behind me. She had followed me to the door, holding her little pink umbrella and her teddy bear, her shoes soaked through. She must have seen the address on the dash and snuck out of the car. She looked up at her father, wide-eyed, hopeful. Daddy? He didn't move. He looked past her. Carla stepped back, clearly uncomfortable. But he stayed rooted, arms crossed. Why didn't you come to my school? Mia asked softly. I could see his jaw tighten. His eyes darted to Carla and back to Mia. Then he said, I'm sorry, sweetie. I've been busy pretending we didn't exist. Mia's bottom lip quivered. She turned and clung to my leg, burying her face in my coat. I wrapped my arms around her. And in that moment, I felt a storm brewing inside me that no rain could match. But I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just looked at him and said, one day, you're going to miss all of this. And when that day comes, I hope you remember that you traded your family, for someone who claps for your ego. I turned and walked away, holding my daughter's hand tightly in mine. The rain soaked us both, but I didn't care. I didn't run. I didn't wipe the tears. I let the rain fall freely over my face like it was washing away the last 12 years. I heard the door shut behind us. I didn't look back. That night, I tucked Mia into bed, kissed her forehead, and sat in the quiet of our home. I didn't cry, not because it didn't hurt, but because I decided, he didn't deserve my tears anymore. The silence after heartbreak is the loudest sound you'll ever hear. For weeks, I went through the motions, waking up, making breakfast for Mia, pretending I was fine. But inside, I felt like I was walking through smoke, searching for something solid to hold on to. I finally took the advice I'd always given my students: ask for help when you're lost. So I found a therapist. Her name was Marlene, a quiet woman with kind eyes and an office filled with soft yellow light. I remember our first session, how I sat stiff on the couch, arms folded, waiting for her to fix me. She didn't. Instead, she asked me to talk. And I did, slowly, hesitantly. At first, I just told her the facts, what he did, what I found, what I felt. But then, one day, I broke. I cried. Not the quiet, graceful kind. The ugly, body-shaking kind of cry. Years of holding it together came pouring out in a river of pain. I told her how I felt invisible in my own marriage. How I blamed myself for not seeing the signs sooner. How I wondered if I had loved too much, or too little. She didn't interrupt. She didn't offer quick advice. She just listened. Week by week, the fog began to lift. I started journaling again, not just about pain, but about hope. About who I was before the heartbreak, and who I wanted to become now. My friends showed up too, ones I hadn't spoken to in months. They brought over dinner, watched Mia when I needed to cry. One even sat with me on the floor of my laundry room when I couldn't bring myself to fold clothes. No one asked for explanations. They just held space. One night, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't recognize myself. But not because I looked broken. Because for the first time in a long time, I looked free. That's when I decided I wouldn't just survive this. I'd rebuild. I started a tutoring business from my living room. It was small at first, just a few neighborhood kids whose parents couldn't keep up with virtual learning. I set up a whiteboard in the dining room, printed out worksheets, used every inch of space I had. Word spread quickly. Soon, I had 10 kids, then 15. I created a website, hired another tutor. I named the program Brighter Minds, because that's what we all were, brighter than the shadows that tried to dim us. But I didn't stop there. Late one night, after Mia had gone to bed, I submitted an application for a master's program in education leadership. I was terrified. I hadn't been a student in over a decade, but I wanted more. For me, for my daughter. 2 months later, I got the acceptance email. I cried again, but this time, it was the joyful kind. The kind that feels like light breaking through clouds. Mia noticed the change too. She started smiling more, drawing again. She'd sit at the piano and play little melodies, humming to herself. Her laughter returned, pure and unburdened. And every time I heard it, I felt like a part of my heart was being stitched back together. One afternoon, a year later, I walked into a cafe after class. I had papers to grade and a quiet hour to myself. The place was nearly empty, except for one figure in the corner booth. Carla. She was alone, her mascara smudged. Tears streaked her face as she stared down at her phone, lips trembling. I paused. She didn't see me, or maybe she did and pretended not to. Either way, I just stood there for a moment. And I felt nothing. No hate, no rage, no desire to confront her. Just peace. Because I had done the work. Because I had risen from everything they tried to bury me with. I ordered my coffee, sat on the other side of the cafe, and opened my laptop. And as I typed out lesson plans for the week, I smiled to myself. Because Carla didn't win. He didn't either. I did. Because I rebuilt myself from the ashes. A year later, I stood in a conference hall filled with women I'd never met, yet somehow, I felt more connected to them than I had to anyone in years. It was a women's empowerment seminar hosted by a local nonprofit. The theme was Reclaiming Your Voice. My best friend had submitted my name as a speaker without telling me. When they called to confirm my slot, I almost said no, but I didn't, because somewhere along the line, I had found my voice again. They introduced me only as Rachel, educator and founder of Brighter Minds, and when I stepped onto that stage, the spotlight wasn't as blinding as I thought it would be. My hands didn't shake, my voice didn't crack. I took a deep breath and told my story, not with bitterness, not with shame, but with the steady calm of a woman who had survived something designed to break her, and rebuilt herself stronger. I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. I spoke about betrayal, about how pain comes wrapped in silence sometimes, about what it feels like to look in the mirror and not recognize the person staring back. I spoke about how healing isn't linear, how some days I felt powerful, and other days I cried in the shower so my daughter wouldn't hear. I told them that rebuilding your life doesn't start with revenge. It starts with a decision. A simple, painful, brave decision. This isn't the end of my story. When I finished, there was silence. Then applause. Not the kind of applause you get from saying something smart, but the kind that comes when someone says something true. As I stepped off the stage, Mia ran to me from the side of the hall and threw her arms around me. "Mommy," she whispered, "you were amazing." I held her tightly. She didn't know the full story yet. One day I'll tell her. But for now, it was enough that she saw her mother stand tall. We went home that evening, exhausted and happy. I tucked her into bed, kissed her forehead, and sat on the edge of my own bed to check my phone. That's when I saw it. A message from David. "I'm sorry." Just 2 words. No explanation. No context. I stared at the screen for a long moment. The old me would have replied, asked him why, demanded closure, maybe even hoped for reconciliation. But that woman was gone, so I smiled, and deleted the message without replying. He had his chance to speak when it mattered, and he chose silence. Now it was my turn to choose silence too, but mine wasn't out of fear, it was power. Because in his mind, he thought breaking me quietly would silence me, but silence became my power. Sometimes, the greatest betrayal leads to the strongest rebirth. You don't have to fall apart to prove you loved someone. You don't have to stay broken to honor the pain. And you absolutely do not need anyone's permission to rise. The version of me that stood on that stage, the woman with steady hands and a soft smile, she wasn't born overnight. She was built slowly, brick by brick, tier by tier, choice by choice. And if you're watching this, wondering if you'll ever get back to who you used to be, let me tell you something, you won't. You'll become someone even better. Because your story isn't over. Have you ever been blindsided by someone you loved? What would you have done in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your story. And if this touched something in you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might need it. You're not alone. You are not broken. You are becoming.